Warning. Listening to this show may result in increased levels of inspiration, motivation, and innovation. Side effects can include the immediate urge to take massive action to build a better business and life for yourself and others. You've been warned. Welcome to Influencers Radio with your host, Jack Mize.
Yeah, welcome back to another episode of Influencers Radio. Now, I got to tell you, I don't do well in situations, one, with sympathy. I don't do well where something's happened to me or I've had some bad luck or something where other people are sympathetic. I'm not good with it. I like to just put it away. And I'm also not good with giving sympathy. Not that I'm cold-hearted or anything. It's just a very foreign, not very comfortable thing for me a position to be in. And so whenever I have a friend or, relative or someone that's been to the doctor, the hospital, it's always very awkward because I immediately go into that situation with, sorry to hear about this. Hope everything's working out. But I had a situation the other day where I had a relative of mine that was in the hospital. And when I talked to him, he was talking about this hospital like he had just got back from a vacation, about how great the hospital was. Oh, yeah, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about that. But, man, this hospital was great. I thought, I've never heard anybody talk about a hospital in this way. And you don't think about hospitals being, in the hospitality industry or anything near that. It's a hospital. It's not expected that you're going to have a great time there, but he did. And as serendipity would have it, I had the opportunity to have a guest on my show that does specifically that, works with hospitals in the healthcare industry, not on their medical side, on their science or their research, but she is one of the top go-to consultants for patient satisfaction. You may think of patient satisfaction similar to customer satisfaction in just about any industry, but a lot of folks don't realize how important patient satisfaction is in the healthcare industry, particularly with hospitals, and what a difference it can make to the lives and just the whole experience of not just the patients, but their families, their friends, and so many others around them, and including the day-to-day experience and just well-being of employees at hospitals. And I was so glad to be able to talk to her and really dig deeper because she has just an incredible insight into the mind of the hospital, the business side of the hospital industry that a lot of people don't really think about, that is just critical to the success in this industry. So my guest today is Kiki Orski. She is the founder of Peak Performance Consulting, and that's exactly what they do. They are laser focused on improving patient satisfaction in hospitals, and not just through tactics and strategies, but starting from the very top is in the leadership. And that's what I want to dig into right from the start, is that entry point into making hospital satisfaction the best that it can be. Kiki, thank you for being on Influencers Radio today.
Well, thank you. It's a pleasure. So,
it really is. A lot of people think of patient satisfaction. We're going to change that with customer satisfaction. Sometimes it's a kind of a sterile process of, were you happy with this? You always see the little comment cards, when you leave restaurants. Here, fill this out and, you'll get a free dessert next time. And, you have your basic little, did you like it, not like it, hated it, that kind of stuff. And a lot of people don't realize that satisfaction is measured fairly regularly in the hospital system. First, tell us a little about why that measurement occurs and the ways that it's measured currently.
Absolutely. Thank you very much for asking that very important question. It is imperative that we know what our patients are feeling and how their experience is while they're in our care. And right now, with value-based purchasing, when patients go home from the hospital, they may get a survey that asks about their experience. that will determine a percentage of a hospital's reimbursement right now. And so it's very important that we make sure, not only from the humanitarian point of view, that we do a good job with our patients, but also from a financial, fiscal responsibility point of view.
Now, a lot of people think, okay, satisfaction, you measure satisfaction. The benchmark for satisfaction to many when they think about hospital is, did I get well or did I not get well? Did I get better? It's not like, if I'm going to a resort, I had fun, I had a good time, the food was great. To a hospital, that most people, that's what they assume, that satisfaction, I'm satisfied with the treatment that I received and it did what I had hoped that it would do. But that's not necessarily the case. People can actually leave a hospital in not the greatest prognosis or better than they thought they were, but their actual satisfaction may be contrast that tremendously.
Yeah, that is very, very true. And here's why. When a patient goes to a hospital, the medical care that we give, the nursing care, the clinical care, they can't judge that, Jack. They're not the experts. They don't know about the IV we're giving them. They don't know about the x-rays or the operation. They have their trust in us that as experts we're doing what's best. But what they can judge is how we make them feel, how we treat them, and how we approach them and how we answer their questions. It's the people side of the business that they are able to judge us on. That's what they're an expert on.
Yeah. And well, I would assume that that's even more critical in a hospital because it's not a resort, because it's not a vacation, that the hospital, when people go into the hospital, they're not looking for the environment necessarily to be the outcome of success. They're going in there under some, usually not the best of circumstances. And the little things that we may not look at when we're on vacation may play a big role in our everything from our mood to just, the way that we feel throughout the day. And, one thing you brought to light is how much more important little things that are intangible, like a smile, like the way that a patient is greeted or spoken to or referred to can make a world of difference to that patient's disposition and satisfaction throughout the day.
Absolutely. Compare a cashier at a resort, whether she or he smiles at you or not, will not really even make a dent in your day. Imagine lying there scared and nervous and worried about what's going on with your health, and all of a sudden somebody walks into your room and they have a miserable look on their face. You immediately feel your heart start to race because you start to question the kind of care, the kind of compassion that you're going to receive from that person. Absolutely.
And so, what are some of the things, and when you talked about, you're talking about starting at the leadership, right? Because a lot of people would think that you go right in and, some of the problems that I think, we discussed was just general, the way things were done, standards and processes. And you don't go directly to that level. You're not going directly to the nurses, directly to the people that are on the floor dealing with the patients. That a lot of that needs to happen at the top. And people think of leadership in hospitals as well. The leaders, they're the doctors, they're the surgeons, they're the highest. But there's actually an administrative and something that resembles more of a corporate structure behind the scenes of the hospital that is really kind of responsible for those types of processes. And the leadership behind that seems to be the pivotal piece there. So how do you do that? Do you directly start with the people on the floor, or do you assess kind of what the leadership is doing currently?
Oh, there is a C-suite in a hospital, just like there's a C-suite in any organization out there. And Jack, we need to start with the top. We need to start with leadership because it's the culture of an organization that will determine a lot of how we move forward with patient satisfaction. We want the leaders of the hospital to be the role models of how all our employees should be behaving. So we expect the same kind of behaviors out of our leaders that we do out of our employees. The second piece to that is the accountability piece. We can expect a lot from people, but if we're not following up with them, and making sure they're abiding by our rules and our regulations, then we're not doing our job as leaders. So we start with the leadership. We make sure they have all the tools that they need to mentor and guide their employees to do their best work.
What do you find the percentage-wise of leaders in hospitals that, and I think of this because the shows like Undercover Boss, where they take someone that is maybe out of the realm of what happens day to day. How many of them are really in tune with what's going on a face-to-face patient day-to-day interaction? Because you talked about ways that even patients are referred to, and I can't help but think about the people associated with a diner, if the nurse walks in calling them sweetie or honey, when that's not something they're accustomed to. And it can be very off-putting, obviously, by some. But how often does the leadership know that that's occurring on a regular basis, to know that those processes aren't being followed or implemented?
Well, I'd like to put it this way. I would love leadership to be out there more. I think if leadership was out there more, rounding on their units, going to see the patients, going to see the employees, I think it would be better. Because I'm not sure that there's an accurate representation of what's actually happening on the unit. I think it could be better.
And do you think the big problem that could be is maybe they think or perceive that there's an accurate representation going on when they get feedback from the current surveys that they get? Do they think that suffices to give them an insight to what's going on when it may be really not?
Yeah, I think what's happening right now, because they're getting their surveys, they're able to compare themselves to other hospitals, but what they're getting, Jack, is a numerical value. And so they're getting, a percentage, a grade. But that grade can, I guess if you get an 85 and the hospital down the road gets an 80, you think you're doing well. When really our patients deserve 100% satisfaction everywhere. I don't think they're getting accurate data.
So that's really interesting. And so that's the end of it. They say, oh, we're doing good, or we're really doing well in comparison to other hospitals throughout, rather than an internal customer satisfaction or patient satisfaction. And here's why we only got an 85% and not a 90%. They don't get any insight as to why their score is what what it is and how they can improve that. It just, hey, we're beating the others, so we should be good.
So yeah, I do believe that some hospitals do not just use it as a comparison to other hospitals and use it as a report card for themselves, a dashboard, we call it in the industry, for themselves. The problem is, when you're on the inside, sometimes you can't see what's happening on the outside, and having someone come in and open your eyes and delve a little bit further into the problems why you can't make sustainable change is very, very helpful. So that's what I do. I go in there and I help them see where they're missing their mark or where they're not consistent in the change that they're hoping to achieve. Because that's a big problem. Leadership thinks that something is happening. They put a new process into place and they think it's been going on for 2 and 3 years. And I come in and I see that, maybe 1/3 of the hospital is still using that practice or following that process. So that's where they fall apart.
So a lot of it, they may have the theory down, but it's not being put into, being put into place consistently in order to give them the results that they need.
Correct. And it doesn't help the patients if 85% of the time they're wonderful. What happens to the other 15% of the time? I wouldn't want to be a patient who's in that other 15%. I love the word you use, which is consistency.
Yeah, and that seems to be a breakdown in a lot of satisfaction across industries. Some of the most popular and some of the most successful businesses of any industry have been built on consistency rather than the highest quality. Not that quality is not important, but consistency seems to win out over the very best of quality, because you can have the best quality of an item, but if it's not consistently applied, then the results are not going to are not going to reflect that. Now, one of the things that you do, which I thought is just completely revolutionary, is the way that you extract the information that they think they're getting from a survey. That is, and these surveys, from what I understand, are delivered after the patient gets home, not during their hospital stay. Is that correct?
Correct. Upon discharge, they have anywhere from 2 days to 6 weeks to get their survey. Okay,
and the survey is more of a kind of a checkbox type survey, and good, better, best type of a scenario that they're checking off pre-filled answers.
Fill in the bubble, 1 to 10. Give me a 1 to 10, and how would you rate this on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 to 5? Yep.
All right, and so that's being used as, and so it tells them where the problems are, and then they need to take that and determine how to resolve problems if that's what they want to do with those results. Now, what I find really revolutionary that I think has been proven in so many different industries is you go in to speak to the patients, not necessarily intrusively at all, but you find out what's going on in the patient's head, in their mind, while they're visiting the hospital. And it's more than filling in bubbles. They get to actually give you feedback as to and qualify their answers versus just filling in a bubble. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Yep. I get to spend time with the patients one-on-one, diving deeply into what the experience of being in the hospital, what's working really, really well, and what they would like to be better.
And so how do what's the response from the patients? And a lot of people would think, well, that might be a little invasive. They're in a hospital. They're in this environment. It may not be the best time to do this, but you find our people are happy to share their experience and to have a voice and have someone to listen to what's going on.
They are truly appreciative to have someone come and talk with them. To listen to what they have to say. And it goes both ways, both from a positive perspective and a negative. They love to give accolades to their nursing staff or their physicians or any of the ancillary staff that has been wonderful with them. They want to congratulate them and tell the world how good they are. On the other hand, they also want you to know when a staff is not acting up to par. And they feel like they have to get that information out there, and I'm the venue for them to do that. I'll also be able to get this information turned around very quickly and hand it right back to the administrative team so that they can do something and do some service recovery while the patient is still in the hospital, and we don't let them leave dissatisfied.
Right, and by doing this, so when a hospital brings you in to do this, because that's the one thing that, I would give accolades to hospitals that are progressive and take this step into improving their patient satisfaction by bringing someone like you in, especially with this kind of unique perspective and way that you gather this information. So you gather this information, and then how do you put that together to allow a hospital to use that information to build on their processes or reinforce their processes or double check or to see that their processes aren't being followed like they thought they would?
Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll take the volumes of information that I get, and like I said, patients are very willing to talk with me. I'll take all the information I get and I put it into themes. So these are the topics that I hear coming over and over and over again, repeated again and again by the patients. I'll take them and summarize that into a chart form so that the hospital administration can see clearly what they're doing well and where they're falling short. In addition to that, I think what makes the program work so beautiful for the hospital is I will go ahead and create an action plan for them. So all they have to do is put it into work. They have to just put it into action, and they can start to see immediate improvement.
Yeah, and the results of that are remarkably quick because of the things that you're able to pull out of these interviews, these insights that you do are things that have some of the biggest impact on that patient satisfaction that most people, a lot of people wouldn't think of that as being something that would apply. One of the controversial topics around, this industry is people say, come on, it's a hospital. What are the expectations? It's not Disneyland, and it sounds like people are trying to make it match those expectations or those benchmarks for success, like it would at Disneyland. And that's not necessarily true. What are the benchmarks for success? We talked about it that a lot of people think that it's the health outcome of that patient, but if you were able to measure that success, what are those benchmarks for success that hospital leadership is looking for to indicate that, yes, they are really doing something impactful and meaningful to improve their patient satisfaction?
I believe probably the number one indicator for me is how well informed these patients are while they're in the hospital. And that encompasses a lot. That encompasses how we communicate with the patient, how responsive we are to the patient. These are the benchmarks that we use, and these are the things that are asked in the survey when they go home. But it's how well informed do you feel about the care? What's going on with you while you're in our care?
That can be tremendous, because just about any doctor, the fear of the unknown is one of the deepest, most, bone-chilling fears people can have. Is what's happening, what's next, what does that beep mean, what is that, and I'm thinking about that as you're saying that, and that's not something that I bet there's a bubble for on the survey.
No, there's some questions about how well we communicate with you. Of course, are we doing it with courtesy and with kindness? But that how well informed is it goes deeper than the did you know about the tests. It's about how consistent were we in giving you information? Did you understand it? Do you have a good handle on what you can expect moving forward? One of the questions I love to ask, Jack, is are we giving you a consistent message while you're here? Conflicting communication is rampant in hospitals. One doctor will tell you one thing, another doctor will tell you, a second thing. So it's that consistent information that's important also, to have the patients feel safe and secure in our care. If they trust us, and the way for them to trust us is through the relationship that we build with them, and that's through communication and flow of information. If they trust us, they're more likely to follow the clinical pathway and to follow our advice, and they're more likely to have a better outcome.
That's, that's tremendous. That right there, just, when we talked about that, made me realize it. I never would have even identified that nor put a pinpoint. And those questions that you just rattled off that are part of the survey, it's almost seemed that they may not get the response or an accurate or factual response. Cause some of those made me sound like if I say no, I'm saying that I'm not smart enough to comprehend. Not did I get the information, but were you smart enough to understand what we were saying?
That's something we worry about in healthcare, the level of understanding of our patients. And you want to know, sometimes they don't ask us questions when they don't understand. So it's something we have to be very, very careful about. And I've even had I've asked a patient, I said, well, when you haven't understood some information we've shared with you, did you ask for clarification? And the patient looked in there and he goes, no. I said, well, why wouldn't you? He goes, well, I really didn't feel comfortable asking that person for any more information.
Yeah. Well, that's why I think what you're doing is revolutionary, because you're getting inside the minds of these patients and getting information from them that they wouldn't get otherwise, that they're never going to fill in a bubble for. And it's something that can be so simple that can open up the book so wide to that hospital leadership and to make just small changes that can make such a big difference to the stay of someone based on something that would have been completely missed otherwise. What would have been some of the reactions that hospitals have seen when, how many of them have that head slapping moment? Like, I can't believe, this is something that we could have been doing that's so easy for us to implement that has made such a big difference.
One of the big things that they're very, very surprised about after I go ahead and do the in-depth interviews with their patients is many hospitals are implementing what's called hourly rounding. And it's a practice that's practiced everywhere. The challenge is the way it's perceived by some staff members is that I need to go ahead and peek into a patient's room and make sure they're okay, or ask the patient if they're okay. And if you ask somebody, are you okay, chances are they're going to look at you and say, oh, yeah, I'm fine. And then that'll be the end of it. I'm finding that when I share with the administration that there's a much better way to do rounding, that if we do purposeful rounding and that we really go in and take advantage of the time that we have with the patient, we can really help to eliminate falls. We can answer questions. We can help build trust by using the time that we're in the room anyway, by asking more specific questions. And so they're like, oh, my goodness, we're in there and we're not asking really good questions. And I say, no, we're not. We're just breathing in and breathing out. I think we can use time more efficiently and more effectively.
Yeah, I think that right there is to be able to unfold that it's not doing something different or doing something in addition. It's just doing something that we're doing anyway, just a little bit differently, that's going to get us so much more valuable information, but also make the lives and the stay of our patients a far more quality stay. So what can folks do to find out more about what you're doing and some of this this revolutionary stuff that you're doing to improve these patient satisfaction of these hospitals?
Well, they can always go to my website, but what I would love more than anything is to have them contact me personally, and I would be more than happy to come into their facility and have a conversation with them to see if this would be a service, of any of the services that I provide would be a good fit for them.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. So how can they find out more about how to contact you?
Okay, so they can go to my website at www.peakperformanceleader.com.
All right.
You can email me at kiki@peakperformanceleader.com, and I welcome all calls, all emails.
Well, I got to say that, really opened my eyes to a lot of what goes on with hospitals, and also you're going to make me look at hospitals a little bit differently, or quite a bit differently, when I go to visit folks in the future, and I'm sure even my own future stays to be aware of a lot of this stuff. So it really is impactful, and that's why I consider you an influencer, to have you here on Influencers Radio, because what you're doing really is influencing not just the hospitals or the administrators that are bringing you in, but everyone down to the staff, to the doctors, to the nurses, to the people working on the floor, to the patients, their families, their loved ones, their friends. It has just such an impact on so many people because of the pieces that you've put together and your insight and your understanding inside the minds of these patients. It really is tremendous. So I want to thank you for coming on Influencers Radio today.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Jack. I appreciate your time. All
right. Fantastic. Folks, check it out. Go see what Kiki Orski is up to at peakperformanceleader.com. We'll have a link right there on the show post. Really, really fascinating information. So until next time on Influencers Radio, remember, you are the only real game changer.
You've been listening to Influencers Radio. To get all past shows and updates on future shows, visit influencersradio.com today, or follow us on Facebook at facebook.com/influencersradio.